There are three rules every child in the Yoruba village of Ile Oja learns before they can walk. Never whistle at night. Never answer if someone calls your name 3 times. And never, ever open your door to a stranger who arrives at midnight. But on the night of the new moon, when darkness swallowed the village whole, someone knocked on every door in Ile Oja, one by one, methodically, starting from the chief's compound and working through every hut, every home, every dwelling. The stranger asked the same question at each door. Do you know who I am? Those who said yes disappeared before morning. Those who said no were found dead in their beds, their faces frozen in expressions of absolute terror, their eyes wide open, staring at something no living person could see. And those who didn't answer the door at all, well, they lived to tell this tale. But they also lived with the knowledge of what they saw through the cracks in their walls, what the stranger truly was beneath its human disguise. This is the story of that night, the night Ile Oja learned that some visitors should never be welcomed and some questions should never be answered. But to understand the horror that came at midnight, you first need to know what happened at noon. Kindly subscribe to help grow this channel. The day started ordinarily enough in Ile Oja, a prosperous village known throughout the region for its bustling markets and skilled craftsmen. Folklore, the village's most successful cloth trader, was arranging his wares in the market square when he noticed something odd. A woman stood at the edge of the market, perfectly still, watching everyone with an intensity that made his skin prickle. She was striking in appearance, tall, with skin so dark it seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Her wrapper was a deep indigo that looked expensive, though Folklore, who knew every fabric trader within 50 miles, couldn't identify the weave pattern. Her head wrap was tied in a style he'd never seen before, elaborate, yet somehow wrong, as if the folds created shapes that hurt to look at directly. But it was her eyes that truly disturbed him. They didn't blink, not once, in the 10 minutes he watched her. Who is that woman? Folklore asked Yewande, the palm wine seller whose stall was next to his. Yewande glanced over and frowned. What woman? There, at the... Folklore turned back, but the woman was gone, but vanished, as if she'd never been there at all. You're seeing spirits in broad daylight now? Yewande laughed. Maybe you should drink less of my palm wine, not more. Folklore forced a laugh, but unease settled in his stomach like a stone. Throughout the day, others reported similar sightings. Babatunde, the blacksmith, swore he saw a tall man in strange clothes examining his tools, only to disappear when Babatunde turned to greet him. Morenikiji, the chief's youngest wife, told her sister about an old man who'd stood outside the compound gates for an hour, never moving, never speaking, just watching. Each time someone tried to approach these strangers, they vanished, like smoke, like shadows, like things that existed in the corner of your eye but fled when you looked directly at them. By sunset, a nervous energy had settled over Ile Oja. The market closed earlier than usual. Families hurried home. Children were called inside before darkness fell. Chief Ademola noticed the change in atmosphere. He was a wise man in his 60th year, with a gray beard and eyes that missed little. Something is wrong, he told his senior wife, Aboside. The village feels watched. It's just a new moon, Aboside replied, though her voice lacked conviction. People are always nervous when there's no moonlight. Perhaps Ademola said, but he instructed the night watchmen to stay alert and keep their torches burning bright. As midnight approached, the village settled into an uneasy sleep. Fires were banked, doors were barred, children were tucked safely into their mats. No one knew that something had already entered Ileoha. Something that had been watching, learning, preparing. Something that was about to knock on every door and ask a question that would change everything. The first knock came at exactly midnight. Chief Ademola woke instantly. His warrior instinct still sharp despite his age. The sound was wrong. Too loud, too deliberate, too rhythmic. 3 knocks, perfectly spaced. Then silence. Then 3 more knocks. Knock, knock, knock. Silence. Knock, knock, knock. Who dares disturb the chief's compound at this hour? Ademola called out, not moving toward the door. A voice answered from outside. It was neither male nor female, neither young nor old. It simply was Chief Ademola, son of Ogunle, born in the year of the great drought. Do you know who I am? Every hair on Ademola's body stood on end. The stranger knew his father's name. I knew his birth year. Details that weren't common knowledge. Husband, don't answer, Abu said, whispered urgently, clutching his arm. Something is wrong. That voice, it doesn't sound human. Ademola felt it too. The voice seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere. From outside the door, yes, but also from inside the hut, from beneath the ground, from the air itself. I ask again, the voice said, patient as death. Do you know who I am? Ademola's hand moved towards the doorbolt. He was chief. It was his duty to face threats to his village, to protect his people. But Abosede's grip tightened. Please, she begged, wait until morning. Whatever this is, it belongs to the darkness. For once, Ademola listened to his wife's wisdom. He did not answer. He did not open the door. After a long moment, they heard footsteps walking away from the compound. Not the normal sound of feet on earth, but something else. Something that clicked and dragged, like claws on wood. The footsteps stopped at the next compound, the home of Folklore, the cloth trader. Knock, 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 silence. Knock, knock, knock. Ademola and Abosed pressed their ears to the wall, listening. Folklore, son of Babajide, who lost his mother at birth. Do you know who I am? A pause. Then Folklare's voice, shaky but audible. No, I don't know you. Go away. The silence that followed was somehow worse than any sound. Then they heard it. A wet, tearing noise. A scream that was cut short. The sound of something heavy hitting the ground, then nothing. Abosed covered her mouth to muffle her own scream. Ademola felt his warrior's courage drain away, replaced by something he hadn't felt since childhood. Pure, primal terror. The footsteps resumed. Click, drag, moving to the next home, and the next, and the next. Throughout Ileoja, people woke to the sound of knocking. Some heard the question and wisely stayed silent. Others answered, and one by one, throughout that endless night, the stranger moved through the village like a plague, asking its terrible question, collecting its terrible price. Kehinde and Taiwo were 7-year-old twins, inseparable since birth, known throughout the village for their curiosity and their inability to follow rules. When they heard the knocking at the family's door, their mother, Ronke, immediately pulled them away from the entrance. Silence, she hissed. Don't make a sound. Don't even breathe loudly. But Kehinde, always the bravest of the two, crept toward the wall, where a small crack between the wooden planks allowed a sliver of a view outside. What he saw would haunt him for the rest of his life. The stranger stood at their door, and in the faint starlight, Kehinde could see that it was wearing a person like a garment. The human form draped over it like cloth, but underneath, there were too many joints in the limbs, too many angles in the spine. The shadow it cast didn't match its shape. The shadow had horns, had wings, had a tail that writhed like a serpent. Ronki, daughter of Oladel, who survived the fever that took her sisters. Do you know who I am? Kehinde watched his mother's face go pale. She knew the voice. He could see the recognition in her eyes, the terrible understanding dawning. But she said nothing, as she pressed her hand over her mouth and shook her head frantically, tears streaming down her face, but she did not speak. The stranger waited, its head tilted at an impossible angle, like a bird examining prey. No answer, it finally said, and Kehinde heard something like disappointment in that inhuman voice. Wise, but also cowardly. I will remember this. It moved on, and Ronke collapsed to the ground, shaking violently. Mama, Taiwo whispered. What was that thing? Not now, Ronke managed. Not now. But Kehinde couldn't look away from the crack in the wall. He watched as the stranger moved to the next compound, the home of Oluwatoyin, the village healer. The knock came. The question was asked. Oluwatoyin, daughter of Adebayo, who learned the healing arts from the old woman in the forests. Oh, do you know who I am? And Oluwatoyin, brave or foolish, answered, Yes, I know what you are. You're a... She never finished the sentence. The stranger's human disguise split open like a cocoon, and something emerged. Something Kehinde's young mind couldn't fully process. He saw limbs that bent wrong, mouths where mouths shouldn't be, eyes that spiraled into infinity. The thing reached into Oluwatoyin's hut, through the closed door, through the solid wood as if it was smoke, and pulled her out. She didn't scream. She couldn't. Her mouth was open, but no sound emerged, as if the creature had stolen her voice along with her breath. Then both the healer and the creature vanished, simply ceased to exist in the physical world, leaving only a scorched outline on the ground where Oluwatoyin had stood. Kehinde finally looked away, Yabil rising in his throat. Brother, Taiwo whispered, what did you see? Nothing. Kehinde lied, though his hands shook. I saw nothing. But he had seen, and he would never forget. As dawn approached, the surviving villagers emerged cautiously from their homes. The night's toll was devastating. 17 people were dead, found in their beds with expressions of such terror that even the bravest men wept upon seeing them. These were the ones who had answered no to the stranger's question. 8 people were missing entirely, including Oluwatoyin the healer and Folarin the trader. These were the ones who had answered yes, who claimed to know who the stranger was. The rest had survived by staying silent, by not answering at all. Chief Ademola called an emergency council meeting in the village square. The elders gathered, their faces drawn with exhaustion and fear. What manner of evil has visited us? Asked Ogundipe, the oldest elder, his voice trembling. I think, said Ifedayo, the village historian, that we have been visited by an Abiku, a spirit child who refuses to stay dead, or perhaps an Nkan, the shapeshifter from the deep forest. No, Ademola said quietly. It asked if we knew who it was. That's not how forest spirits behave. This was something else, something looking for recognition. It was young Damilola, recently initiated into the secret societies, who spoke the truth everyone had been avoiding. It was testing us, he said. Those who said no and died, they lied. They did know what it was, but they denied it. Those who said yes and disappeared, they knew too much. They recognized it, and it took them for that knowledge. Yet the only safe answer was silence, not claiming to know, not claiming ignorance, but refusing to engage at all. The council fell silent, absorbing this. But what was it? Abosid asked. If we don't know what visited us, how can we protect ourselves if it returns? It will return, said a voice from the back of the gathering. Everyone turned to see Ronke, Kehinde, and Taiwo's mother. She stepped forward, her face ashen but determined. I need to tell you all something, she said. Something I should have shared years ago. About my mother, about how she really died. Ronke's hands shook as she spoke, but her voice remained steady. My mother, Oladale, was a powerful woman. She could see things others couldn't. Spirits, omens, the threads of fate that bind us all. The elders called her a seer. Others whispered she was a witch. When I was 16, a stranger came to our village. A man, or what looked like a man, dressed in traveling clothes, claiming to be a trader from the north. He was handsome, charming, and my mother immediately told me to stay away from him. That is no man, she said. That is Elegbara, the trickster spirit, the one who walks between worlds. He comes to test us, to see if we remember the old ways, the old warnings. Do not speak to him. Do not acknowledge him. Do not admit you know what he is. But I was young and foolish. I thought I knew better than the old superstitions. When the stranger approached me in the market, I smiled at him. When he asked if I knew who he was, I said yes, trying to show off my mother's teachings. You're Elegbara, I said proudly, the trickster, the guardian of crossroads, and the messenger between gods and men. The stranger's smile grew wider, showing too many teeth. Indeed, I am, he said. And you, clever girl, have just given me permission to enter your life. I wonder what I'll find there. What secrets? What fears? What prices will you pay for your knowledge? My mother intervened. She offered herself in my place, offered her life in exchange for mine. The stranger accepted. That night, my mother died in her sleep, and I survived. I thought it was over. But Elegbara is patient. He's been waiting. And now, she looked around at the devastated village. Now he's come to collect on an old debt. He's come for me. The council erupted in frightened murmurs. Then give yourself up, someone shouted. If this is your fault, end it. It won't end, Ifidayo said quietly. It is historians' knowledge cutting through the panic. Elegbara is a trickster, yes, but he's also a teacher, a harsh teacher. He's not just here for Ronke. He's here to remind all of us of something we've forgotten. Forgotten what? Ademola demanded. The old covenant, Ifidayo said. The agreement our ancestors made generations ago. We've become prosperous, successful, modern. We trade with coastal cities. We wear foreign clothes. We speak foreign words. And in our prosperity, we've stopped performing the old rituals. We've stopped honoring the old spirits. We've forgotten. He was cut off by the sound that made everyone's blood run cold. Knock, knock, knock. In broad daylight, in the center of the village square, with everyone watching, the sound of knocking echoed impossibly from every direction. Knock, knock, knock. The stranger appeared, not walking from any direction, simply appearing, materializing in the center of the gathered crowd, like smoke condensing into form. In the daylight, it was even more terrifying. The human disguise was paper thin now, barely holding together. They could all see what lurked beneath, the impossible angles, the writhing shadows, the eyes that looked in too many directions at once. "People of Ileoja," the stranger said in that voice from everywhere and nowhere. "Do you know who I am?" Silence gripped the village square. No one dared breathe, let alone speak. The stranger walked through the crowd, and people shrank away from it, pressing against each other, trying to create distance from the thing that should not be. It stopped in front of Chief Ademola. "You," it said, "Chief, leader, protector of your people. I asked you this question in the darkness, and you wisely stayed silent. But now, in the light, before all your people, I ask again, do you know who I am?" Ademola felt the weight of every eye in the village upon him. His answer would set the precedent. If he said yes, he would disappear like the others. If he said no and lied, he would die in terror like those found in their beds. And if he stayed silent, Ademola's voice cracked. He cleared his throat and tried again. "I know stories, legends, warnings passed down from my grandfather's grandfather. I know that there are spirits who test us, who remind us of our place in the world. I know that we have forgotten much, that we should remember." The stranger tilted its head. "That is not an answer to my question." "No," Ademola agreed. "It isn't, because the truth is complicated. I know who you might be. I suspect what you represent. But to claim certainty about spirits and gods, when I am merely a mortal man, that would be the height of arrogance, wouldn't it?" For the first time, something like approval flickered across the stranger's impossible face. "Clever," it said. "Neither yes nor no, but a third answer. Uncertainty laced with respect. Your grandfather would be proud." It moved on, through the crowd, until it reached Ronke. "And you," it said softly, "daughter of the seer who sacrificed herself. You know who I am. You've always known. Your mother taught you well before she paid your price." Ronke lifted her chin, tears streaming down her face, but her voice steady. "I know you are Elegbara. I know you walk between worlds. I know you test us to teach us. And I know that my mother's sacrifice should have been enough. Take me if you must, but please, I beg you, spare my children, spare my village." The stranger regarded her for a long moment. "Your mother's sacrifice was accepted," it said. "But this is not about you anymore. This is about them." It gestured to the gathered villagers. This prosperous, forgetful people who stopped pouring libations at crossroads, who stopped leaving offerings for the spirits, who stopped teaching their children the old prayers and warnings. It turned to address everyone. "I am Elegbara, yes, trickster, teacher, guardian of boundaries. I walk between the world of gods and the world of men, and I remind both sides of their obligations. Your ancestors knew this. They honored the covenant. But you've grown fat on trade goods and foreign customs. You've forgotten that your prosperity was never yours alone. It was granted, conditional, dependent on remembering your place in the great web of existence." The stranger's form began to shimmer, to shift, showing glimpses of its true nature. Something vast and terrible and ancient beyond human comprehension. "I came to test you, to see if anyone still remembered. Most failed. Some survived through wisdom or luck. But none of you, not one, maintained the old ways properly. So, I offer you a choice." It raised one hand, and in its palm appeared two objects: a knife carved from bone and a kola nut painted red. The knife represents the old price, blood, sacrifice. One life given freely to restore the balance. The kola nut represents the new covenant, not blood, but commitment. Return to the old ways. Honor the spirits. Remember the lessons your ancestors died to preserve. It held out both hands toward Chief Ademola. Choose, Chief of Ile-Oja. One life, or all your lives changed forever. Decide now. Ademola stared at the two objects. Behind him, he heard murmurs from his people. Fear, confusion, desperate pleas. The kola nut, someone whispered. Choose the kola nut. We'll honor the old ways we promise. But Ademola remembered something his grandfather had told him when he was initiated into the secret societies. Elegbara tests truth above all else. He rewards wisdom, punishes lies, and most of all, he demands that we face the consequences of our choices. If I choose the kola nut, Ademola said slowly, what exactly changes? Everything, Elegbara replied, and nothing. You will pour libations daily. You will honor the crossroads. You will teach your children the old prayers. You will remember that you do not walk this world alone, that there are powers older and stranger than your comprehension, and that respecting them is not superstition, it is survival. And if we fail, if we forget again, then I return, or something else does, something perhaps less educational. Ademola looked at the knife. And if I choose the blood sacrifice, then you must choose who dies. One life, freely given or freely taken, and the rest of you continue as you were, forgetful, prosperous, ignorant, until the next crisis, the next warning, the next teacher who comes calling. The chief closed his eyes. His mind raced through scenarios, calculations, strategies. And then he remembered something else his grandfather had said. A chief who won't sacrifice for his people is no chief at all. He reached out, not for the kola nut, as everyone expected, but for the knife. No, Abosede screamed. Husband, no. Wait, Ademola said, holding up his free hand. I haven't finished. He turned to face his people, the bone knife heavy in his palm. Elegbara asks us to choose, but he's already shown us the answer. 17 of our people died last night because they lied. 8 disappeared because they knew the truth but couldn't keep it to themselves. The rest survived through silence, through humility, in the face of forces they couldn't understand. He looked directly at the trickster spirit. You don't want blood. You never did. The knife is another test. You want to see if we've learned anything, if we understand that the real sacrifice isn't death, it's pride. It's our certainty. It's our belief that we don't need the old ways anymore. Ademola knelt, placing the knife on the ground, and picked up the kola nuts instead. We choose the covenant. We choose to remember, not because we're forced to, and not because we're afraid, though we are afraid, and we should be. We choose it because it's right, because our ancestors were wise, because there are things in this world older and stranger than us, and pretending they don't exist doesn't make them go away. For the first time since appearing, Elegbara smiled, not a threatening smile, but something almost gentle. Finally, the spirit said, someone understands. The trickster's form began to dissolve, the human disguise falling away completely to reveal something that hurt to perceive directly. A being of pure potential, of chaos and order intertwined, of boundaries and the crossing of boundaries. The ones who disappeared will return by nightfall, Elegbara said, its voice already fading. They have been educated. They will help you remember what you've forgotten. The ones who died, their deaths stand as a warning. Bury them with honor and speak of them often, so their sacrifice teaches future generations. And Ronki? Ademola asked quickly. Her mother's debt was paid long ago, Elegbara said. I came for her village, not for her. She simply helped you all understand why I came. Honor her mother's memory. She was wise. The spirit was almost gone now, barely more than a shimmer in the air. One more thing, its voice echoed. The kola nut in your hand. Plant it at the village crossroads. Tend it well. When it grows into a tree, you'll know the covenant holds. But if it ever withers and dies. The warning hung unfinished in the air. Then Elegbara was gone. The villagers stood in stunned silence for a long moment. Then, as the sun broke through the clouds, they began to weep. Some from relief, some from grief, all from the overwhelming weight of what they just experienced. That evening, as promised, the 8 missing people stumbled back into Ile Oja. They looked exhausted, haunted, but alive. When asked where they had been, they spoke of walking through a place between worlds, of being shown truths about the nature of reality that human minds were never meant to fully grasp. We saw the web, whispered Folklore, the cloth trader who'd been one of the first to be taken. We saw how everything connects, how spirits and humans and gods and nature are all threads in the same cloth. And we saw what happens when threads are cut, when the pattern is forgotten. He would never trade cloth the same way again. None of them would live the same way again. Chief Ademola planted the kola nut at the village crossroads that very night. The entire village gathered to watch. And for the first time in a generation, the old prayers were spoken aloud. Ronki led them, her mother's teachings finally honored rather than hidden. Her sons, Kehinde and Taiwo, learned the words carefully, knowing they would one day teach them to their own children. The kola nut sprouted the next morning, impossibly fast, defying all natural laws. By evening, it was a sapling. By the end of the week, a young tree with spreading branches. And it grew and grew, becoming the center of Ile Oja's renewed spiritual life. Every morning, someone poured libations at its base. Every crossroads in the village received offerings. The children learned the old stories, the old warnings, the old wisdom. When traders came from the coast with foreign goods and foreign ideas, the people of Ile Oja listened politely, but never forgot their own roots, their own covenant. Years passed. A generation grew up knowing the story of the stranger who came at midnight. They knew what happened when you said yes. You disappeared into mystery. They knew what happened when you lied and said no. You died in terror. And most importantly, thus they knew the wisdom of staying silent in the face of forces you couldn't fully comprehend, and the greater wisdom of honoring those forces anyway. The kola tree grew massive, its branches visible from miles away. People from other villages came to see it, to hear the story, to learn the lessons. And at night, sometimes, travelers passing through Ile Oja would swear they saw a figure standing at the crossroads beneath the kola tree. A tall figure in strange clothes, watching, waiting, testing. But the people of Ile Oja no longer feared such visitations. They understood now. The spirits were always watching. The boundaries were always there. The covenant was real. And as long as they remembered, as long as they honored what their ancestors knew, they would be safe. Well, mostly safe, because Elegbara is a trickster after all, and tricksters never truly leave. They just wait for the next lesson to teach, the next warning to deliver, the next knock on the door at midnight. 50 years after the night of terror, Kehinde, Now an old man himself sat with his grandchildren beneath the massive kola tree. "Tell us the story again, grandfather," his youngest granddaughter begged, "about the stranger." Kehinda smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. He still had nightmares about what he'd seen through that crack in the wall, the thing that had worn humanity like a costume. "I'll tell you," he said, "but you must promise me something. Promise me you'll teach this story to your own children. Promise me you'll never forget that the world is stranger and older than we can imagine. Promise me." He paused, his expression distant. "Promise me what?" "A grandfather," the girl asked. "Promise me," Kehinda said softly, "that if someone knocks on your door at midnight and asks if you know who they are, you'll remember that some questions have no safe answer except silence." The children promised, as children always do, and in the shadows beneath the kola tree, something that might have been a trick of the light or might have been something else entirely seemed to nod in approval. The covenant held. For now. And so, dear listener, we reach the end of this tale, but not the end of its lessons. When the stranger comes knocking, and the stranger always comes, in one form or another, remember, there is wisdom in silence. There is danger in certainty. There is power in respecting what you cannot fully understand. Some questions are tests, not requests for information. Some visitors should not be welcome, no matter how human they appear. Some knowledge comes at a price too high to pay. The people of Ile-Oja learned these lessons through blood and terror. They learned that prosperity without gratitude is theft, that progress without remembering is regression, that the new world doesn't replace the old world. It simply covers it up, like a thin cloth over something ancient and watching. If this story gave you chills, subscribe and share it with someone who needs to remember that the world is stranger than we admit. And next time someone knocks on your door at midnight, maybe wait until morning to answer. Have you ever encountered something you couldn't explain? Something that made you question whether the modern world has room for ancient mysteries? Tell us your story in the comments below, but be careful what you admit to knowing.